Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai ki tēnei hui. Hello everyone and welcome to this afternoon session on what's next in sustainability in 2019. I'm Abby Reynolds, I'm the Executive Director of the Sustainable Business Council, and I'm also going to welcome whoever is on live stream. I'd really like to hope that there's some people out there in their pyjamas or hanging out with some friends and having some beers. We have had that before, so I feel like that's something we should aim for every one of these events. If people can't be here in person and are saving their carbon credits by staying at home, then they should at least get to do this in their pyjamas or something comfortable. So CJ's trying to make the slides work. So the intention of the session is to kind of talk about what we've got coming up in SBC this year. We did a member survey last year and we are using that feedback to make sure that we're listening to you guys and we're doing some of the things you asked us to do. And one of the things was to keep talking to you about what we're working on and how we're working and how you guys can get involved. So a little bit of the focus of today is on that. I also thought it'd be really useful to talk a little bit about some of the trends that we think are going to shape 2019, and this is in no way comprehensive or complete, but some of the things that we think are going to be really significant this year, and we're really interested to hear your perspectives on these as well, because some of these you'll be more expert in than we are. But we spend a lot of time as a team talking together about what we're seeing and what we're hearing from you, because our opportunity is to look across 105 SBC businesses and now some of the Climate Leaders Coalition businesses and understand what trends, what things you're asking for, and therefore how we might respond and what the system might need. So last year we surveyed Sustainable Business Council members, and I know there's some people in the room who are part of the Climate Leaders Coalition but not part of SBC, so some of this will sound a bit strange to you, and that's fine, I can explain some of it later. But the Sustainable Business Council, we have 105 members, and we thought it was really important to ask you what you thought we were doing well, what you wanted us to do more of, and what you wanted us to stop. And so what you told us through that survey is that making sustainability, I've gone past the SBC strategy, so I'll pause on this briefly. We spent quite a lot of time over the last 2 years really getting clear on the Sustainable Business Council strategy, and so the key things to pay attention to here are our purpose is really here to help businesses and specifically our members be the best for New Zealand and the world. And the way we're doing that is through our 4 pillars, trying to make sustainability inspirational and aspirational, making sustainability easy and clear, creating a sense of fellowship and belonging, and then making sustainability a norm and unavoidable, which kind of goes to our ultimate mission, which is to make sustainability mainstream in New Zealand business. And so what we were interested in, because we'd had the strategy for about a year, was sort of testing how it was working for you guys and what you wanted more or less or the same of. So you said that making sustainability easy and clear was our number 1 priority. And that came up time and time again. We did dinners with some of the senior business leaders in our membership. We also did sessions with our advisory board as well as the member survey, and that was the number 1 issue, that making sustainability simple for all of you was a key thing. And increasingly what I hear people saying to me is we really need help embedding sustainability. And I think that's a really big shift on from where we were even 2 years ago, where a lot of people just needed help with kind of some of the basics. But now what we're hearing from businesses, we need to really, really make it real. How do we get it into the business as part of our day-to-day? You told us that you wanted more networking and more events, and you were particularly clear on the fact that you wanted more events in Christchurch and Wellington. And so we've paid real attention to that, and we are not only have we started doing more events in Wellington and Christchurch while trying to maintain a similar number of events in Auckland, but we're also employing a full-time events and training manager to make sure that we can continue to bring you together on the issues that you're most interested in the places where you want to get together. You asked us for more clarity about the programs that we run and how you could get involved. You were really interested to understand as well what our impacts were. So what we've tried to do is start to introduce talking about our programs with you when we have events, and so you'll be hearing from members of the team a little bit later on about what they're doing in their program work. You told us that you wanted to be kept up to date with the emerging issues, and particularly stuff that was emerging from overseas, which may have an impact here. And so that's why I thought it was useful to kind of draw in some of the trends we're seeing and talking about those. Not that we profess to be experts, but we do think it's really useful if we're paying attention to what's going on overseas and try and bring that together for you. And you asked us to keep broadening the mix of people and the roles in sustainability. So I think you'll know that the people at the heart of this organisation are our sustainability managers and the people who are living sustainability inside their organisations. But what we recognised is that one of the things which most significantly enables those managers is if the CEOs are on board, and that's part of the reason when we set off on the work of the Climate Leaders Coalition, it was targeted at CEOs. If we could get them on board and unlocking resources for you guys, we could all go faster. And then what we learnt from working with them is that if we could get directors on board, that would definitely help the CEOs go faster, and so we started working with them. And then what we learnt is that CFOs are a big barrier as well, so so we'll probably start trying to open up a conversation with CFOs this year, but also comms managers as well. And right before the session, some of you were at our session to talk with comms managers because they're a really critical stakeholder for most of you. So our intention is to keep kind of working into those other parts of the organisation who may be either enablers or barriers for our sustainability managers. So those were probably the key things you told us, and it really matters to us that we're doing the things that you want us to do. We're a membership organisation, we're here to help you. So please keep telling us what you need, what's working and what isn't. There's a couple of people in the audience who do that really well, and thank you, I'm very grateful. So that's very briefly from me, just some of the feedback we've had on member feedback from all of you this year. So some of the things we think are going to be really significant this year. We will be doubling down on climate change this year, and I don't mean the Sustainable Business Council per se. We will be doubling down on climate change in New Zealand. We are going to have zero carbon bill in the House at some point. It was intended to be February. So we're going to have at least 6 months of discussion about our climate change response, and we thought we were talking about it a fair bit now. I can't see it going backwards from that. I think we'll be talking about it a whole lot more. And as it goes to select committee, there will be even more voices. So again, for those of you who were here before, I'm going to make the same plea. Those of you who are interested in climate change, it's going to really matter that you decide to step up and go and present your views to select committee. The government is going to need to hear if this is something that matters to you. But the thing that will be really interesting about 2019 is we're not likely to get any major policy decisions. So although we'll be talking a lot about climate change, the zero carbon bill is the thing that's going to set the glide path for us, and we're going to need a target, but we're probably not going to get a whole bunch of really crunchy policy interventions around it. So it'll be another one of those years with lots and lots of hooey and not very much doey. Probably from the government side though, I expect more from business. You're on notice. I think the other thing that will get more interesting this year is we will start to break climate change down into some of its more kind of constituent attributes, if you like. So we've done a lot of work on mitigation. That's around how you reduce your emissions. But we will start the conversation more meaningfully this year about adaptation. There's only a handful of our members who've done the work to understand what changing weather events, what coastal inundation and coastal erosion is going to mean for their businesses. And we are talking about such a significant business risk. I kind of feel a bit horrified by that. So I can see David down the back. I know Transpower have done a really nice piece of work around what climate change is going to mean for that network. So that kind of piece is going to be on the agenda this year. We're going to have to start talking about the impacts on people. MB has got a Just Transitions unit, and they're going to be starting to talk about how we transition communities and people, and it will be very related to the things like the future of work, which some of us are also talking about. But that conversation will probably start more in earnest this year. And then I think the other conversation I hope we really kick off, and maybe it's not a conversation so much as just getting on with it, is innovation. So one of the things the Climate Leaders Coalition was always intended to do was to hold the opportunities narrative. One of the studies I've read tells us there's about $29.3 trillion worth of value that will be created from responses to climate change. If as New Zealand we can unlock just a fraction of that, imagine how well we could do. So we can't lose sight of the opportunity that is in climate change response. I think 2019 is going to be the year where we really have to start the meaningful conversation about food, and realistically it has already started. I mean, how many of you are doing Veganuary? Anyone here? No. Veganism has continued to be one of the biggest rising trends globally, and we're seeing global food, not producers, but marketers really starting to have to think about what their vegan options are. And then last week or the week before, the Eat Lancet report came out, which talked about the healthy planet diet. And so for the first time, we are starting to have a conversation about how the food we eat and climate change and the impact on natural systems and our natural capital come together, and that's what that Healthy Planet Diet's meant to do. And that has already started, and we've already seen a bit of it here already, started a conversation about food, which we really haven't been having until now. I remember being in this room 3 years ago and having the VP of WWF from the States here, and him saying that in the next 40 years we need to grow more food than we have in the last 8,000. And that was just kind of a shock to my system, but it didn't seem to have landed anywhere as something we needed to be working on. But this year, I think we are recognising that all hands need to be to the pumps on that in terms of thinking about how we're going to feed a global population when we're facing climate change and we've got a whole bunch of our biological systems under serious stress. The next one is around consumer power and urgency. So the other thing we've seen over the past year is the pace at which issues enter the consumer consciousness and then land loudly and proudly in our laps. I don't think any of our businesses were ready for the scale of the response on plastic. It kind of came out of, I don't want to say left field, because those people who are in the space would have been thinking about plastic as a material issue for a while, but it felt like it came fast and the expectations about our response were really high. And talking to a bunch of businesses, that was very difficult to respond to. And so I get very curious about how much more of that we are going to see as we start having conversations about being in the 6th extinction event, as we have conversations about soil loss in New Zealand. It's happened on water. As these issues enter the consumer consciousness, you know, there are a cluster of consumers who are taking these things ever increasingly seriously, and then they come and look to us for the solutions. And I think we should be starting to wonder about whether that pace is getting faster and how we make ourselves prepared for the response. I did a bit of thinking about some of the other ones which may or may not turn up this year. So we've seen who's kind of seen what's coming from the Extinction Rebellion movement in the UK, yep, and who's following Greta Thunberg, the young Swedish activist, who spoke so compellingly at the COP. So, you know, school strikes, kids not going to school around climate action. You know, there is a piece around a growing call for civil disobedience on this issue, because the sense of it being urgent is gaining momentum, and I think that's just something that we need to have on our minds as businesses. The Me Too movement did much the same, and I think the thing that I think we'll continue to see over the next 2 years is businesses really having to take seriously diversity, not in terms of how they are diverse inside, but also how they think about their customers and diversity in their customers. And I'm starting to see more businesses take seriously the idea that the kind of appetites of men and women might be a bit different, and then if you think about the full range of diversity and inclusion, how that turns up in products and services. In the UK, we've started to see calls for a right to repair as a fundamental right. And so again, that's a kind of a consumer response to their frustration with business around not creating products which last. Locally, I think we need to start asking ourselves questions about when modern slavery is something that we are going to have to get really serious about. And I went to a talk just before Christmas, and it's estimated that we have 3,000 slaves in New Zealand at any one time, which is a really horrifying thought. And so when I look around the room, I wonder whether any of them are in your supply chain, and what would come true if it was suddenly discovered that they were and people started talking about that. So I think there is a really interesting issue about the scale of the issues, how quickly they enter the public consciousness and our customers' consciousnesses, and how quickly they are expecting us to respond. And it's really got me wondering, for those people who are kind of in the technical sustainability space who have to do materiality assessments, whether our traditional approach to materiality is good enough anymore. How can a once a year, which is good, right, materiality assessment help us deal with this stuff? So I am interested in how we might think about navigating high-speed issues approaching us, and then dealing with that from a materiality point of view. So one of the things which I am increasingly asking the businesses I talk to is to stop thinking about the consumer of today, because that's a lag indicator. When we go out and we survey our customers, it's a lag indicator. It's about what they wanted from yesterday or today. we all know how long it takes us to build the capability around the sorts of issues which consumers are asking for. So we need to start thinking about what the consumer of 5 years' time or 10 years' time is going to want and need, so we can be preparing ourselves ahead of the curve. And if we think about some of the intersecting issues that we'll be facing, it's probably not that hard to guess what they're going to be concerned about. And then my final one is, are we into sustainability 3.0, or are we moving into a conversation about regeneration? I think this is the year where we'll get really serious about talking about regenerative approaches. My sense is, again, related to the piece around consumers, that we are now at a place where consumers' expectations of us are, where they are really concerned about issues, they're going to expect us to go beyond just dealing with our negative impacts. They're going to start asking us to think about how we can restore ecosystems, how we can restore communities, how we can restore people, and be regenerative. And personally, I have this conversation with people all the time. Most of us hate the word sustainability, and if we could get rid of it, we would in a second, because it's so complicated and hard to get people to make sense of. And it seems this idea of being regenerative or regeneration is one that kind of captures people's makes sense to people in a more immediate way than sometimes sustainability does. So I think this will be the year where we do start having that conversation in quite a meaningful way. And I'm aware of at least a couple of businesses who are starting to think about how they include a regenerative approach in the work that they're doing. So those are my sort of picks for some of the things which are going to shape 2019. Really keen to have more of a kōrero with anyone who wants to afterwards about whether I'm right or not. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Alison Hooft. I'm really delighted. My team are going to be talking about some of the work they're doing, and so please give Ali a big round of applause.
Thank you. I'm going to be talking on behalf of two other program managers as well as myself, so excuse the various bits of paper I have. And CJ, if you wouldn't mind doing the slides again, that would be really wonderful. I am going to put on my Kate hat. She does like to do a bit of a dance sometimes, but I'm not going to do that for you, I'm sorry. And so my name's Alison Hooft, so kia ora everybody. I will be talking a bit about the climate program, where it's been and what's coming up and what it's all about. So last year, it felt like a really big year. We had the Climate Leaders Coalition started. We had Rachel Dupree doing maternity cover with us, and she did an amazing job doing working with various forums, science-based target workshops. There was a lot happening. And there was a real feeling that the system was shifting. And there was visible business leadership, some really different ways that journalism was approaching the issue. And there were some ambitions in government that we started to get being talked about. Next slide, please. So what does the SBC's climate program look like in 2019? Or in Abby's words, what does doubling down on it look like? As SBC members, you've been taking out as many emissions from your operations as possible, but as well as the need to ramp this up, there's growing expectations on transparency and disclosure of climate change risk and activity. And we think there's a need to strengthen coordination of activity across members, but also across the business sector as a whole. Information sharing, profiling, and working together will strengthen our collective impact and make things happen faster. Next slide. So in terms of deliverables, there's a lot going on, a little bit of a different angle to last year. We've decided to focus on transport. As we know, it's a key opportunity area in New Zealand and for our members. We've got a workshop coming up, and we'll be looking at existing transition plans from members and delve deeper on what it will take to overcome current barriers in relation to transport. We'll also look for opportunities to collaborate. We're running this workshop in partnership with the Ministry of Transport, and that'll be coming up in May. We also want to develop a CEO guide to help New Zealand business leaders understand the risks and opportunities of climate change. So this resource will be part of SBC's overall mainstreaming strategy. And we've worked with MFE, Ministry for the Environment, ECA and WWF to design a large-scale event that will be connecting businesses with low-emission products and solution providers. So it's SBC's matchmaking service continues in various forms. And this will be how we reach out beyond SBC membership, and we really expand the network around New Zealand, and as well as having really different opportunities to profile the great work already underway. Next slide, please. So there's two main opportunities to get involved. So with the transport workshop, if you've got stakeholders that you think would like to be involved, Kate's details will be, they're right there, so you can talk to Kate, get in contact directly and have a chat with her on that. And in terms of Embark, which is the low emissions event, if you want to be a part of that, just again get in touch with Kate. At the moment, the content's being developed, so right now is the right time to get in contact while things are being decided, while pathways are being set, and while stakeholders are being brought together. And the same applies if you're a provider of low emissions products or services. Let Kate know what the opportunities are, what you've got available, and she can design the event around that. And next slide, thanks. And for anything else related to the climate change area, there's Abby, who'll be talking about lots of things. There's the Climate Leaders Coalition information coming out, and then talk to Kate about the transport workshop, Embark event, and any other information that you need to know. So this is the area that I work on, the Consumer Decision Making Program. I'm privileged. I do wear a couple of hats at SBC, and this one is a real delight to work in this program. It's doing some really interesting stuff. Next slide. So the projects and areas of focus in this area, in this program, they've changed a lot over time, but the core remains the same. We really want to help members stay at the leading edge of the evolution of sustainability storytelling and being up to date with what the shifting consumer expectations are. So we know that this area is a priority for various reasons. We know that companies that are authentic and transparent in their sustainability efforts will have a better reputation and be trusted more by consumers. When we did our member review last year, reading multiple reports over very many late nights, we could see a number of trends being mentioned over and over again. And shifting consumer expectations was in the top 3 that appeared in either the CEO statement or the overall mega trends that the company has identified as having an impact. And we also found that in the member survey we did last year, shifting consumer expectations was the number 1 issue that members said is going to impact their business in the next 2 to 3 years. And so it's not going away, it's just growing. There's lots of ways to see this as unique leadership opportunities for businesses that live their values and purpose in an authentic way across all areas of the business and express a brand story that resonates with people. So we've got a few projects coming up. The main one that we've got really focusing on at the moment is the New Zealand Good Life Playbook. So this work has been inspired by the original Good Life Playbook by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, who worked with Havas a couple of years ago, and they developed a playbook for the US market about what it means to Americans to live well. What does the good life look like to them? So we're doing this for New Zealand. We're expanding on it a little. And we're doing this because we believe there's a really, really critical business opportunity in thinking about how to better connect with New Zealanders' reality of what the good life is. This is something for now. This isn't for the future. This is where are the consumers now, and looking at getting the information to help your company look at, did you know this? Does it match with what you know? How do you meet the consumers where they are? And how do you evolve your brand and work internally and in your external communications to support how they already want to live well that's a lower impact life, or in ways that can support a more sustainable lifestyle and sustainable consumption. So we've partnered with Colmar Brunton to get some really fantastic people-generated data on what living well looks like and feels like to New Zealanders. And this is from a really broad range of backgrounds. The fieldwork's finished and we're at the draft stage. So we've got 16 types of moments that have been identified of what that really matter to Kiwis, with information about things like feelings and moods and energy levels associated with those moments, and profiling information to go with that. So at the moment we're testing where that's at, how it can be applied, how it can be implemented and rolled out across businesses, what do they have in common, and what do they each need to do individually to implement this information. The other kinds of projects we've got going on is we're going to have some workshops. There'll be implementation workshops for the playbook, as well as other ways to get people to go through some exercises to look at how they're connecting with consumers and getting up to date with trends and expectations. We want to help build the capability within your business, so some of that will be bringing in other people that will support your sustainability team, whether it's comms and marketing people or others, that you can work together across your business functions on these issues. And looking at evolving your brand story, because that keeps going and there's always new information that people need to know. And we'll be doing we're looking at a series of video interviews that will get international leaders or local to talk about what they're seeing, what's their expertise, technical or inspirational pieces, just to pepper through the year, to keep everybody up to date with the latest things. Next, thanks. So just really quickly, how to get involved. The launch and workshop of the Playbook will be in late March, so we're just refining how that will be, and you'll hear about that very soon. That's going to be Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, and it'll be on live stream. We haven't decided yet what our focus on the webinars will be. All the video interviews. I've got a couple in mind, but I'm keeping them to myself just for now. But what I would like you guys to do is I've put a couple of posters around the room. When you get up later, I'd love you to just vote with a red sticker on the topics that you think you'd like us to cover. And there's also some post-its there for you to write down ideas of things in the consumer space you really want to hear about that would help you in your work. And include anybody you'd really love to hear from. And we love being ambitious, so don't be afraid to put a big name on there that we can see what we can do. So that's it for the consumer program. And now I'm just going to see if I can drop my voice just a tiny bit to talk about Rob's program. Or add some bass, as Trevor Noah tries to talk about. All right, so Rob is the leader of the Sustainability Leadership Program. This work is looking at how to help members help them with building expertise, because we know that sustainability is not simple. And when people talk about how you embed sustainability, what does leadership look like? It's more than a conversation. People need skills and understanding and networks to help them through that. And they're also tackling very complex issues, climate change and the future of work. There's many, many different aspects to that. So our work with senior leaders shows that there's growing recognition that there's no such thing as business as usual anymore, and a new type of leadership is required. It's one that takes new ways of strategic thinking and influencing, higher levels of self-awareness and collaboration at a scale that hasn't been seen before. So that's why we have a program of work to help members develop these skills. We're also seeing increasing expectations from investors, consumers and regulators, meaning businesses must show more transparency around their performance and their impact on society. Members tell us that reporting on non-financial performance is one of their top emerging issues. Integrating sustainability and environmental, social and governance, or ESG, into the DNA of a business helps ensure long-term growth, profitability and value creation. So we're here to talk through how to unlock these opportunities and where they sit at the heart of your business and your role. Okay. So 3 main components of the program: building leadership, organisational capability, and building good governance and disclosure. So the key projects in 2019 is we're designing the next iteration of SBC's Sustainable Leadership Program. So traditionally we alternate annually between future and senior leaders, but it's always up for looking at what the scope is, what the content will be, what the topic is that year, and where the appetite is for this to go. Member insights have suggested that this year there could be a focus on senior business leaders. So we're working with Catapult to design a new program, building on the strength of last year's, and exploring options to move from developing individual leaders to developing leadership across systems. Another project focuses on the future of work. And this isn't just about technology. So there's lots of talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, but what does this mean with shifting demographics? Where do people and communities sit with this? And where is there just transition to a low carbon economy? How does this all work together? We've been engaging with members to understand what this means for business and what the unique role SBC can play in this, in helping members prepare for it and shift. The third project helps focus on helping members lift the environmental, social and governance reporting practices, and embedding sustainability into good governance. Okay, next one. So what's coming next? It's likely that we'll launch the next Sustainability Leadership Program mid-year. We've also heard that from members that good collaboration is very frequently misunderstood and very difficult to do. So we're looking at holding a tech talk, which is one of our webinar series on good collaboration. In terms of the future of work, next month we're looking to launch a think piece to members about oversight and in preparation for the future of work. That will be followed by a networking event for members in March. And we've got the question in mind of what must a group of progressive, ethically responsible businesses do to prepare? So Rob's email is after this, and he's really keen to hear your feedback and insights on all of this. He also wanted to mention that there's a next summit on the Sustainable Development Goals is coming up in Auckland on the 2nd of September. So he'll be working with AUT and University of Auckland on that. We're part of co-designing it. And so he also would like some feedback for anyone who attended last year on what they'd like to see differently this year. And in good governance, the Good Governance Guide was released in October. We really want to hear who's using it, how are they using it, what's the impact been, how have things changed over time. And so this can showcase your leadership and the way it doesn't have to be mission accomplished, where it's at so far, as well as giving us tips about where it could develop and how it can help others. It's also likely that our member review process, for those of you who hadn't been through it, every couple of years we track how our members are going against our member commitments. So we'll be doing that again at the end of this year. And we're looking at ways that we can do a deeper dive into some aspects on that, particularly in how members are doing on non-financial performance. And a couple of ideas that came up last year from the member review and from some of our webinars is a bit more support for smaller businesses in our membership, or smaller to medium businesses. So we're looking at what templates and guidelines we can provide, particularly on reporting is an area that there seems to be quite a bit of need. We're also looking at doing a Tech Talk webinar on the TCFD recommendations on climate-related risks, strategy, governance and disclosure. So those are the various things happening. We'll keep you well informed of what's going on, and the same applies for all these programs. Keep in touch with us with any questions or any stories. We try and keep everyone in the loop as much as possible, but at over 100 members it can get a bit tricky. So just keep talking with us. And I'd like to hand over to Catherine.
Great, thank you, Ali, and did a great job of channeling Kate and Rob, I think. So the resemblance, probably not so much, but definitely the spirit. Okay, kia ora koutou. I'm Catherine Jeffcoat. I'm the Communications Manager here at the Sustainable Business Council. I know a few of you were in the 4 to 5 session when we were talking about storytelling, so thank you for coming in for that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to, this is a very brief rundown on what we're doing in communications more broadly. We talked before about the goal is to tell member stories about what you're achieving in sustainability, and working very closely with Rachel Cox on telling stories about the Climate Leaders Coalition. And so we do that because we want to show the business value of sustainability and encourage other people to get on board. So we're hoping that this will produce more positive stories about members, about sustainability out there in the broader media, and encourage businesses to join. Communications projects that we've got underway. A big part of my role is also supporting the work streams that Ali has just been talking about. So I'll be helping communicate the work that we're doing on those work streams to you. One of the main channels that we use is our newsletter Pānui that comes out every Thursday. I hope that you're all happy subscribers, and if not, you can sign up on the website. So like I said, Climate Leaders Coalition. And storytelling workshop there, that's the Science Media Centre workshop that we're talking about with them on helping your experts to better communicate the exciting work that they're doing. This year, it's been 20 years since the New Zealand Business Council for Sustainable Development was formed, which is fantastic. So we're looking to celebrate 20 years of sustainable business in New Zealand. I don't know if that'll take the form of a 20 years on photo or not. I certainly wouldn't want any of my haircuts from 20 years ago out there. But we'll be talking to you about the milestones of sustainable business in New Zealand, and particularly love to hear from any members who joined up 20 years ago and are still going strong. Yep. Okay, so how you can get involved? Well, as always, send us your stories for Pānui, for media interest. Tell us if you're interested in the Science Media Centre potential workshop. As Ali was talking about the Colmar Brunton Better Futures report coming up in February, do look out for that. Come to the launch if you can, or watch on live stream, because I think that's going to be a really good opportunity for businesses to talk about the consumer sentiment that we're seeing, and how they're responding to it. So to address growing consumer concern in certain areas, I think we all know that climate and plastics are going to be big ones, but I think it will be really interesting to see what else is emerging as well, particularly around food and some of the things that Abby was talking about before. So do keep an eye out for that, and I'll be in touch around some perhaps some key messages and communications opportunities on that. Great, and you know where we are. So, so that's the SBC content part of things, and I'm just going to hand back to Ali for a wrap up.
Thanks, CJ. Just wanted to do something. It's a bit of an experiment, really, rather than us just getting up and going straight for a bite to eat and a beverage. Just something as a bit of a segue. A little exercise I'm going to call All We Share. And it's going to be something where we're going to be moving forward. I'm going to ask a series of questions, and if the answer that people would have would be yes, I'd like them to move forward. If it's going to be a semi-yes, you're not quite sure, maybe lean in and poke your arm into the circle, but it will involve, we'll start with if everyone could just stand up. Make sure you've got a little bit of space to step in front of you if you need to. So feel free to push chairs back if you'd like. And the reason for doing this is we've had a bit of a holiday. We've been a bit refreshed. We've got a lot coming up yet, but we're not quite in the thick of it. And a lot of today is about just reconnecting with people that we know. We've got back to work and reconnecting with what our professional lives are, but our personal lives and our personal values are there throughout it as well, and they can be intermingled. So this exercise is just really quick, and it's a series of fundamental questions for people, it's an exercise to see who is concerned about the same things or not, who values something the same thing as others or not, who likes the same thing or not. See if there's any surprises, or there might be more people who agree with something that you wouldn't have expected. So we'll just do a quick test one. Who in this room likes to dance? If the answer is yes, move forward. Great, excellent. Lots in Auckland as well, so I think that might go on the events calendar one day. All right, move back. One more fun one, which is almost a bit of the opposite. Who prefers really getting into a book and cuddling up with a book rather than going out? Okay. Depends on the day. Yeah. All right. Here's a few others. Who's really thinking hard about what they'll do, about how they'll do things differently this year? Okay, thank you. Who in this room is optimistic about the future? Okay, still more than I expected. That's great. Who already knows and who's already thinking about some major changes coming up this year? You might be having a child, moving house. For any of you who are considering new roles, you don't have to tell us about that. But for anybody here who's expecting, already thinks there's a big change coming up this year. Okay, great. Pretty much everybody. And for the live stream audience, I do encourage you to move around the rooms wherever you are. Who in this room will be looking for support networks or resources to help you be more resilient? Yep, okay. Who's trying to fend off the worries that it's going to be a tough year ahead for sustainability? Great, okay. That hasn't obviously creeped in too much then with many of us. And just a final one, who here is already thinking about who they can work with, whether it's new people, colleagues and different people in their organisation or different sectors to help them achieve something? Fantastic. All right. Also, looks like there'll be good attendance for the collaboration webinar that's coming up then. Well, look, thanks very much, everyone. That was really just a way to get us up, bit of loosen up, and let's all just go grab a drink. Feel free to keep talking about what's coming up in your lives this year, what you're thinking about. Don't forget to vote on the consumer piece, and look forward to joining you for a glass of wine.